chat. There he is, great man. Stephen Quartermain, welcome to your call.
My apologies for technical difficulties, but better late than never.
Hey, it's worth the wait. And, you know, you are a man who is known for his timing, so it's kind of ironic, actually, when you think about it.
Yeah, sorry.
Stephen, welcome.
Thank you very much. How are you?
Good, good, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us and taking out time out of your, it's a busy Saturday morning and a busy weekend for you, usually. Is that right?
I had some difficulties with a leaking roof, so I've just managed to patch that up. So that's
good.
The reason for my technical difficulties lateness. But I'm all good enough. I'm fine today. Well, there's no footy, so I'm just going to sit and watch the races today. Day off.
Good, good. It'll be a heavy track, I think. So good luck with that.
Very heavy.
So how are you coping? That's a good segue. How are you coping without any fresh footy this year? So
well, I'm really lucky because I've still got my main job, which involves me 5 days a week, and look, I miss the footy, and but it's not my prime source of income anymore. So in that respect, I'm lucky. But I miss getting up every Saturday. I still call for AFL Nation, so I miss getting up every Saturday and wandering off to the G or to Marvel and doing the games. But hey, I think we're going to get a season. It's just going to be a little bit later than usual.
Yeah, and a little different. Maybe a grand final on Christmas Day, which would be something a bit different. Speaking of the day job,
I think it could be anywhere between Cox Plate Day to New Year's Eve. Who knows? But I think it sounds like things are going pretty well. So I reckon we're probably going to wrap it up hopefully by the end of October, maybe early November.
Yeah, right. And you think, and the word is a lot of sort of games during the week as well, maybe some Monday night, Wednesday night games, do you think? Is that
I'm not sure how they're going to do it. The fixture, hopefully, once Daniel Andrews makes some announcements on Monday, I think the AFL's pretty much got a fixture to go. But I think they're still sorting out the dates. And the great complication, of course, is travelling in and out of South Australia and Queensland, Western Australia and Queensland. So that's thrown a few problems. But even with WA, I mean, that's now, by the time the season's up and running, which would be another 4, 5, 6 weeks, hopefully those restrictions have been dropped and we won't have any issues at all. But yeah, as we've heard a lot from all the experts, it's a moving beast, this thing. So we're just going to have to sit tight. But we'll certainly get a season in.
Yeah, I think so. Well, it's definitely looking that way. And speaking of your day job, the 9 to 5 is obviously reading the sport news on Channel 10. How are you? Give us a bit of a glimpse in the newsroom. Given there is no fresh footy, even us on your call, we're struggling for content. How is it? What's the behind the scenes like on a daily news run?
Well, it's a good question actually, because when all this kerfuffle started, we thought, how in the hell are we going to fill? Because on Channel 10 we have 8, 9, 10, 11 minutes of sport most nights. We thought, how in the hell are we going to fill this segment every night? And to be honest, it's actually been, due to a lot of people's hard work and lateral thinking, it's actually been quite easy. And we've had some really good stuff, and we have no problem with content. And there's been so much speculation, not only in AFL, but cricket, NRL, world sport. So it's actually been pretty good. And we've found the sports people who are as bored as we are, stuck at home, have been really helpful and keen actually to do media. So it's actually been, in some respects, a lot easier than usual to get access to players, albeit not great quality. Obviously, a lot of the people are Skyping and Instagram living and all that sort of stuff. But it makes it's been made quite easy. So we've been quietly surprised on how easy it's been to fill the content.
Good. So maybe it's end up being a good thing for you guys. We and speaking on that, it's given us a great opportunity for everyone to sort of take a bit of time out and go back and watch some classic games. We've been doing it the last few weeks since the shutdown. Yeah. So it's for us, it's been great to get a bit of perspective and go back in the history of the game, and also take time out and do things like this and speak to people like yourself. And for us in your call, we're interested on the genesis. You're pretty quiet that you're a Hawks supporter, but we wanted to find out, how did that all start? What's the why the brown and yellow? What happened?
Well, it's an interesting story actually, because I have no Australian rules football history in my family. My dad's a Kiwi, my mum was English. So I was born. They came out in the late 50s. I was born in the early 60s, and then we moved overseas to New York and London for 6 years, and then lived in Sydney. But in I think it was 68 or 69. I'm pretty sure it was 69. My father came back here to business and was invited to a Melbourne Hawthorn game at the MCG and took me along. So I would have been 7-ish.
Right. Yeah.
And I actually can remember the game. Hawthorn had a big win, thank goodness, because I said, I'll barrack for the team that wins. Imagine if I was stuck being a Melbourne supporter. Anyway, that day, I think Peter Hudson kicked 12 or 14 goals. I got taken to the rooms after the game, met a young Lee Matthews, guys like Peter Hudson, Peter Crimmins. They were really nice. We went back overseas. I remember landing in Sydney in 71, turning on the telly, and there was the grand final.
Wow.
And I said, I remember that team. I remember those players. Barrack for Hawthorn that day and never looked back. How lucky am I? As I said, that's just as well Melbourne didn't win that game.
Yeah.
Would have been very, decades
very
apart.
Story. Yeah. And almost there a few years ago, but not good enough.
Not quite.
So any memories of, that was your first game as a 7-year-old in the MCG. That's not bad. That's a good game.
Yeah. So I missed all the Glenferrie era, but yep. I saw that game at the MCG. And when I came back I really didn't sort of religiously started following footy 1974. Okay. So that's when I really got into it. So my knowledge pre-74 is not fantastic, but from 74 onwards, yeah, that was it. So, I've been lucky. I've had great Hawthorn eras in the 70s, 80s, sneak one in the 90s, and then it's been pretty good since.
Yeah, that definitely has. You've done very well, and still up there. This year you're still a contender. You've always been just chipping away, so it's good. And I mean, the recurring theme of that story, excuse me, seems to be we had a chat with Byron Cook from Fox last week, and his first game was a Sydney game where they won by about 130 points. So it seems to be the trend is whatever first game you go to, and if you decide you're barrack for the winner, that seems to be the case, and they always seem to be big wins. So there might be something in that.
Because we had no history, as I said. I mean, most people, like, for example, my children had absolutely no say in it. They were Hawthorn supporters from the day they were born. It was not negotiable. But as I said, it was different for me not having any Australian rules footy background because I was brought up on rugby union and then cricket. So I didn't really get into Aussie rules till I started playing when I was about 11.
Okay. So just a bit of background for you. So what we sort of position ourselves, we're a bit of alternative commentary. So it's a bit of a goggle box for footy. So my mate and Danny and I sit on the couch and have a few beers and watch the footy and commentate. As someone who does that professionally and is obviously far, far, far better than we are at it, can you give us a bit of insight when you were doing the commentary for Channel 10 back in that era? Can you give us a bit of insight into behind the scenes? What happens? It's you and at least 2 or 3 other men and women doing the commentating. Who gets to go? What happens behind the scenes to make sure that you say what you want at this point and change over to Robert Walls or Tim Lane or whoever it might be? How does it work?
Well, as far as taking the opening bounce goes, no one really used whoever decides to do it. So there's no sort of preconceived idea. But with commentary, it's just a flow thing. And basically, when we worked on the 2 commentators, 1 or 2 special comments, you look at Foxtel these days, they have the 1 commentator and the 2 special comments. Yeah. I personally don't like that. I rather have 2 commentators. But it's basically touch and feel. So you're looking at each other, and then in the passage of play or something, you touch your fellow commentator or eye contact, or once you get to commentate with someone for a long time, you just get to know the natural flow and how it operates. So the consistency is when the game's actually in action, it's the commentator's role. As soon as there's a stoppage, bang, it's the special comments. Now, if special comments man wants to say something in particular, he'll tap you on the shoulder. That's your cue to shut up because, let's be honest, it's about the special commentator. They're the experts. So it's teamwork. It's a real teamwork thing. But the longer you do it with the same team, it becomes easier because you know everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. And in your opinion, absolutely. In your opinion, we recently did a bit of a poll of some of the greatest callers that we admire here at Your Call. You are absolutely on the list. Danny's a big fan of yourself. Obviously, we had Rex in there. We had some of the greats. From your point of view, past and I guess present, the ones you've worked with and maybe ones that you admired as a kid, who are some of your favourites that you can think of?
Well, growing up, like most men my age, Mike Williamson and Lou Richards were the hero. Yep. Mike Williamson was a fantastic caller. Lou Richards was a great caller. He and Peter Landy had a great team going together. Yep. I was thinking Robertson was an underrated caller. I mean, honestly, we're so lucky. We have been so blessed with so many great callers. But I guess growing up, Mike Williamson, my all-time hero as a caller, listening to radio, and then I got to work with him on television. I think Tim Lane is the best all-round caller in Australia. He's terrific. I get to call with Peter Donegan now on radio with AFL Nation. He's, again, one of the great all-around callers Australia's ever had. Yeah. And TV wise, I worked a lot with Tim. We had a Saturday night partnership. I also got to work a lot with Anthony Hudson. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So I'd say my favourite callers these days would be Tim Lane, and for TV would probably be Anthony Hudson.
Yep.
Yeah.
And with those guys, what do you sort of detect as the recurring theme? Is it an X factor thing? Is it something is it preparation? What is it that sort of you think, and from your point of view, like how do you prepare, and what do you think is those guys? What's the thing that makes them great?
Well, Tim Lane is a pure wordsmith. That's his greatest quality. But he's also Tim Lane and most of them are pretty good. But Tim and Anthony are very accurate. But they know the moment. They know how to make the most of the big moments. They know how to do the big moments justice. I think that's a great ability. They also have the ability to shut up when need be, and let the moment take care of itself, or let the special comments people do their thing.
Yeah.
I think that's the quality that makes them a good caller.
And so, speaking of knowing when the big moments are and when to shut up and when not to shut up, we obviously have to address the Leo Barry, the 2005 grand final. You've spoken about it at length, but
yeah,
from your perspective, how does it feel to be? I mean, you're synonymous with that moment. You can't separate the two. Tell us about was there any preparation for that moment? Was it just a muscle memory thing? What happened?
How could you prepare for that?
No,
I mean, that's the beauty of the sport we're involved in. I mean, it's just the game's full of surprises. Obviously, when you're calling a grand final, it's a little bit different, particularly on television. When you're calling a grand final on television, you are conscious of the fact that this is going to be here for life. So don't stuff it up. That's the first thing. So it's funny because when I said Leo Barry, you start. It's not a term that I use. I don't know how it came out of my mouth. Never used it before. Never used it since. It just came out of my mouth. I don't know why. And it was it was a very stressful situation because it was a close grand final. It was in the 32nd minute or whatever it was. But you don't have time to think, oh, what could I say? What could I do? It's just natural. It just comes out. And fortunately, I was lucky enough to do the moment justice. And that's all I was happy about. It's funny, I didn't even think about it afterwards. The game came and went, and I got in my car, drove home, and went out and had a Chinese meal, as I always did after grand final. And I didn't give it any second thought until a few people said, it was really, really good, you nailed it. But I was just happy that I did the moment justice. And, it was one hell of a mark.
Absolutely, and I think it's one of those things. The two things is, imagine if you stuffed it up, and for you wouldn't have known how long there was, so you wouldn't have known that was going to be it. That was all over.
I hate the countdown. I love the 5-minute warning. I love the fact we didn't, and that was the beauty. We had no idea how long there was to go, and I never wanted to find out. But now, of course, it's all Americanized. I hate it, and I know most people like the fact that they know to look at the clock and say, "Oh, there's 20 seconds to go." I completely dislike it. If I ever had a say in changing a rule in the game, that would be it, because I like the element of surprise. But obviously, a lot of people don't. They like the Americanism of the game. But we had no idea how long there was to go, and the natural changeover of the commentary at that time just happened. So it could have easily been Tim. And so that was. I think that I miss that part of the game where it's become a bit clinical when you have the seconds ticking down. So I miss the element of surprise.
Yep. No, we're definitely with you on that. Quarters, we won't keep you up much longer.
No,
we know there's Caulfield are about to jump, so we'll get back to it.
Another half an hour, haven't we?
Yeah, probably. I need to do my research. I need to get my tips in before we finish up. One thing, I don't know if you don't want to talk about it, it's absolutely up to you. But we had a few viewer emails and faxes and whatnot about it's Melbourne folklore. The Jean-Claude Van Damme story. We can address it here. You don't have to answer it if you don't want to, but I'd be remiss. I'd be doing my, our 10 followers a disservice if I didn't at least mention it. Is it true?
Yes, there was an altercation. Yeah. What happened was that we were at I think it was a party for Jean-Claude Van Damme. It was at Crown, and I got invited by my close friend Annie Peacock. So we went there, and it was all going well. But Jean-Claude had already not covered himself in glory in Sydney. Had done a couple of things he shouldn't have, and then he came to Melbourne, and at this function, let's how do I put this? Let's say with a few of the ladies in the function, he was very handsy, and he chose to put his hands on my wife, and that was what caused the confrontation. So, it was an unfortunate situation, and but you can't go around doing that to women. So I made a stand.
Mate, it's good for you. That's all I can say. It's one of the, like I said, it's become part of Melbourne folklore, and it's one of the many reasons why we admire you. You're one of the greatest. Thank you very much for taking the time out to chat to us.
Anytime.
We didn't cover the Kennett curse. I didn't want to bring that up, but we've seen a few classic games recently. The Cats and Hawks. We'll maybe just touch on that quickly. How did you? I mean, do you kind of love it that there's such a thing as the Kennett curse? It's such a Melbourne AFL thing.
It's gone now, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, look, so. It was. I wish you hadn't said that at the time, Jeff. But hey, you know what? When the big moments, when it really mattered, and even during the Kennett curse, when it really mattered, the Hawks still got over the line.
That's true.
Grand final, prelim final. So they're the ones you want to win. There was a few bizarre games where Hawthorn somehow lost it and Geelong somehow won it. But it's been a fantastic rivalry. I remember talking about Leo Barry, that rivalry between West Coast and Sydney in the mid-2000s was unreal. And it was a privilege to be calling those games. And like Geelong and Hawthorn, I mean, both teams should be congratulated on what they put out in the park every time they play. And it's great for footy, and that's why they get 90,000 every time the two teams play. So, great rivalry, and it'll go for a few years yet, I reckon.
Absolutely. And they're two of the teams like that, Sydney and West Coast back in the day, and Hawthorn and Geelong. Still, I'm a Collingwood supporter, and Danny, my mate's Carlton. That's a game I'd go to. And I don't mind them being. It never gets boring. It's a clash that you never get sick of.
No matter where they are on the ladder.
Yep, correct, exactly. Quarters, you're a legend. Thank you very much for your time this morning. We'll give the plug 3AW during on the weekends. Movable feast, is that right?
Occasionally. 3AW filling in for breakfast, the movable feast occasionally, and AFL Nation for footy, and of course Channel 10 for the news this Monday to Friday. Perfect.
I couldn't have said it better myself, and that's why you're where you are, and that's why I'm on my couch. Quarters.